on there. All right, we are live now. I got Ryan Chapman on from Fix Your Funnel, guys. And Ryan is been doing software. He describes when he goes to parties as, I do software just to kind of get people off his back, but he's really a true ninja when it comes to helping market your business online, whether it's online or offline, even using text message marketing with Fix Your Funnel. I'm actually familiar with using Fix Your Funnel. We used it for a sales team last year to produce tremendous amount of results, because people oftentimes were opting in for stuff or scheduling time for a webinar or something like that. But we used Ryan's software specifically to help, I think our conversion ratios, I tracked them because I tracked all the numbers, were up by 50% of the people that are showing up to presentations based on just using your guys' work. So I just wanted to, thanks a lot. That's my plug for Fix Your Funnel, guys. If you haven't heard about it yet, you should go check it out. But I have there's two parts to Fix Your Funnel. There's Trent and there's Ryan. So we got Ryan on today. Ryan, appreciate you coming on today, bud.
Oh, it's my pleasure. The interesting thing about software is there's a lot of different ways you can go about it, And one of the things that really makes a difference is if you pay attention to the core problem, the core question that people are trying to address. And I saw a recent article that was fall in love with the problem, not the solution, which I thought was really good, because a lot of times what happens is, especially as entrepreneurs, we get excited about our solution and it becomes our baby, and we become blind to all of its failings and where it's short and where it's not working. And that becomes a real problem if you're trying to run a successful business. You got to fall in love with the problem that you're solving. That way your solution can evolve as the problem and your understanding of the problem evolves.
So pause real quick. So you mean I can't tell you you've got an ugly baby?
Well, that's probably the biggest danger as an entrepreneur, is when you fall in love with your product or your service. You got to be willing to cut the whole thing off and let it go if it's not really addressing the problem today, because problems change. You know what I mean? The nature of the problem may be the same, but the way that the problem needs to be addressed will change over time. And so you got to be willing to change with it, adjust. And that way you're really serving your customer versus just serving your ego.
Wow. These are like bombs being dropped all over, gold nuggets right here, guys. So serve your customer, not yourself, right? And you think that'd be a real novel concept, but there's a lot of people out there who just want to serve their big head, and not the customer.
Well, and to be totally honest, we all start out there, don't we, Daryl? I mean, I know I did. I want to make $1 million. I want to be a successful business person and have a big house, fancy car, all that stuff. And in the beginning, I think that drives a lot of people. And then you reach a point where you start seeing the picture a little differently. It's maybe not better or worse than anybody else, but you see it a little differently. And then you start realizing, if you really want to have lasting success that keeps coming back at you, your focus can't be there. And so it's kind of an oxymoron, or like, maybe it's not an oxymoron, but it's like this strange thing where the more you pursue it, the further it gets away. And you've got to get to a place where you start attracting it instead of just pursuing it. And attracting doesn't mean just thinking about it, in my perspective, but taking action consistent with whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish.
So when did you get started as an entrepreneur?
Oh, as a kid. I mean, I consider having a paper route entrepreneurial.
Okay.
So I think that was probably where I first got started. My friend that was just older than me had a paper route, and so I wanted one. My dad was a general contractor, so he was a builder, always self-employed. And so, that was kind of the way we were raised. We were raised not to even think about college, which I don't know if that's a good thing, but that's how we were raised. You just figure it out, become an entrepreneur, you make something happen. And so that's kind of where, we got our start. And I say we because I'm the oldest of 13 kids. So it's a huge
time out. 13?
Yeah, 13.
Your parents know how that stuff works, right?
I don't think they ever really figured it out. I think biology stopped them from going further.
Biology stopped them.
But, it was a big brood. My dad he was the one that worked outside of the home. Mom obviously was super busy inside the home. So
did you guys even have space to fit everybody inside the home? So
it was, at times it was tight. But
my dad like bunk beds up to the ceiling or what?
Sometimes. But my dad was successful, and then he would lose it all, and successful and then lose it all. So, it wasn't uncommon for him to do, $1 million in profit in 1 year. And then 2 years later, we're all working, just trying to scrap food onto the table. So there's a lot of that. So we got exposed to a lot of lessons about the ups and downs of entrepreneurship pretty early. We were very familiar with hard work because during the lean times, we were the company, and it wasn't for money, it was for food and house. And some people might have different opinions on that, but I think it taught us some good lessons about just focusing on getting stuff done and maybe not focusing so much on what am I going to get out of it right now. And so it gave us a little longer term perspective, which has served me now in a way that I wouldn't have expected it at the time.
Yeah. So, where's that place when you were a child that you never want to go back to that keeps you up at night?
One of the downsides, I think, to the whole experience was just I didn't know the value of what I did. Because I think in the real world, you get out there, you start doing stuff, and you get a value exchange going on, and you start to get a perception for what your value is. So it's still something I think I would, to be totally honest, I struggle with yet today. Charging the appropriate amount for the value that I bring to the marketplace. That's why I stick to software, because I honestly can figure it out a little easier in the software market. And so, it makes it easier for me not to have to fight that battle. But as we open other businesses, we're having to learn those lessons of how do you establish proper value. And, for us, where we did it with our early company that about, Short Sale Genius, which was, to be totally honest, the first time I had real success in business wasn't until 2006, 2007. And up until then, I'd done a lot of failed business ventures where I had a lot of the pieces to the puzzle, but one of the pieces I was missing was marketing and then marketing automation. So I got both those pieces in 2006, and 6 months later, we started a company that went from 0 to 1.3 million with 5 employees. And so that to me was a big success. So much so it created other problems for me.
Other bigger problems, right? Paying taxes on that much, right?
Yeah, that is a real challenge when you, if you've been scrapping for a long time, maybe just getting by, and then suddenly you figure out the formula. One of the things that can kind of go by the side is taxes, because you're like, I haven't had to think about that really. I've been writing a bunch of losses, and so now you got a bunch of income. You got to make sure you pay those taxes. IRS does not forget.
IRS, you're not listening right now, right?
No, they know. I'm working with them. But, that's something you have to keep on top of as well.
Sure, absolutely. And you mentioned some of those failures. What are some of the, again, there's no failure in business. There's only feedback. What's working, what's not working. What are some of those lessons that you learned early that if somebody's listening and they wanted to avoid those, that they could learn?
I think you can spend too much time trying to make the perfect business before you launch it. So that was one. I raised money from friends and family. I was going to do it right. We were going to make this work. And I just over-planned, tried to make the product perfect instead of getting it out there and getting some feedback from the market. So, what I do now when we're starting something new is we try and get to market as quickly as possible. And the idea is that if we can get something out there that's a minimum viable product where people can see a little taste of what it is and then start giving us feedback on, hey, yeah, this is great for us, or this is great, but it could really use this. That's essentially how we built Fix Your Funnel. I will say we lucked into the success we had with Short Sale Genius because the market was in the right place and we happened to fall in the right place and we happened to get the right person to give us some edge on that. And so all the arrows were aligned in the right way. Now, at the time, it was luck. Going back and looking at what we did now, that's something we could engineer in the future. But at the time, there was a lot of luck involved now. We did learn marketing, which is one of the things we were missing in that first venture, that one I was telling you about where I raised money for friends and family. I did not understand marketing at all. And marketing is super critical. You have to get marketing down. And if you don't have that knowledge yourself, then you got to get it from somebody who has it. And I think you can learn it, but honestly, if you're starting up a new business right now and you haven't learned those lessons yet, you're going to do a whole lot better for yourself to get someone who already has learned those lessons and have them lead you through it as you learn. I think it's definitely a skill set every business owner needs to have, but you definitely don't want to try and figure it out all on your own. I mean, so during that 6 months before we started Short Sale Genius, where I was introduced to marketing, that was like an accelerated university. If I was trying to start the business at the beginning of that 6 months, I don't know that it would have gone as well. I needed those 6 months of education before that business could launch the way it did. And we had a lot of things right. We did a lot of things wrong. And fortunately, we got our math right so that we could be able to make it through the learning curve. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably one of the biggest things I always tell newer entrepreneurs is make sure you get the math right. Because if the math is wrong, you could be a whiz at all the areas of the business and still fail. And so getting the math right is probably the most critical thing, besides understanding the key components of marketing and sales and fulfillment and collecting the money.
Yeah. So that again, it wasn't all about the product. It was about the process. You said the marketing, the sales, the fulfillment, and then working with the customers, follow up and stuff like that. I mean,
the product always has a role, but I think entrepreneurs tend to focus too much on just the product and not understand that you got to have all those pieces working, and the product can get better over time. I think a lot of us have been trained up, maybe I'm making generalizations, but a lot of us have been trained up to feel like we got to be right. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, as an entrepreneur, you're going to be wrong more often than you're going to be right. So getting comfortable with being wrong, or looking at it as feedback instead of failure, like you're saying, is critical, because you got to be willing to make mistakes in order to succeed. None of us even get past the first hurdle that we have in life, which is like walking, without falling a whole lot. So the process of learning is the process of making mistakes. And unfortunately, maybe it's the school system, I don't know. Maybe it's our society. We get trained into thinking that we have to get everything right the first time. And it's just not true. And if you can get past that, you can move a whole lot quicker, I think, as a business owner.
What did you learn that helped you get over that a whole lot quicker?
Dan Kennedy, I'll give a lot of credit to him. He has this CD set called Brass Balls, and it's kind of a funny concept, but that CD set alone had a whole lot of philosophical concepts that I had not considered before that really changed. One of the phrases that sticks out to me is good enough. For somebody that wanted to be perfect all the time, maybe it was the way I was raised or something, something was messed up there. Good is good enough was a breakthrough for me, because it told me that I didn't have to get it perfect. I just had to get it good enough to do what it needed to do at that time. And for me, that was a huge breakthrough. Getting that concept down allowed me to move much quicker towards a successful result, because I wasn't afraid to put something out there and have it fail. So, in marketing, most of what we do fails, and in the sense that it doesn't hit the outcome that we're hoping for. Mm-hmm. And so being able to quickly iterate and be able to separate yourself from the product. Sometimes the marketing is the product to the person. You know what I mean? I came up with this great campaign. I got this really good thing. We'll put it out there. Everybody's going to love it, and it's going to create great success. And then it bombs. And then the person's like, I got to make this work. No, maybe you don't. You just need to move on, try something different.
Mm-hmm. The brass balls concept, we actually have that in our mastermind. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think that was a turning point for me.
Getting those brass balls.
Yeah, because you got to learn that it's okay to ask for what you want. For me, at least, that was a challenge in the early part, was, being able to ask for what we want. I'll give you an example of this was in pricing. When we first started out with the Short Sale Genius product, we had priced it at $297. And we almost made the mistake of not having an ongoing membership, but we added that. It was actually in the parking lot going into our first presentation we were going to give. And we were like, okay, do we just give this to the people, or do we create a membership for them to access it? And we're like, membership to access it. That was something I learned from Dan Kennedy in that 6-month period. And it was a good thing we did, because once we stopped selling for this company, Short Sale Genius, we just had our members that we had. We weren't trying to add any new ones. We generated about $4 million in the recurring revenue after we quit selling. So just think about what a mistake it would have been to not have recurring revenue. And this is why, having
$4 million mistake.
Yeah, that was the $4 million mistake, which is bigger than the $3 million mistake, which I think you've heard about before. But the $4 million mistake would have been not to have recurring revenue. That's where it goes back to math and getting your math right. But one of the other things that where we got the math right, and this was because, again, we've been exposed to this idea by Dan Kennedy that there's this price elasticity. In other words, you have no idea what the value of anything is, and the best way to find out is to ask the market. So we were at 297 when we started, but half of the room, there's only 21 people, but half of them bought at 297. That told us, with our limited knowledge of selling to a group of people, that the price was too low. So we said, okay, let's put it at $495. And we did $495, and we sold about half of the room. This time it was room 700, so it was a much bigger group, and we were very excited. And that was kind of the real big launch for us. And then we said, well, then it's got to go higher. And we did 797, and we still got a phenomenal result. And then we said, okay, well, let's do 997, and phenomenal result. And then we said 1297. Same result. So we said 1497. It finally dropped down. And so we said, okay, price is 1497, 3 payments, 1 payment, 1297. Now, can you imagine how quickly we would have run ourselves straight into the ground if we would have stuck at 297?
Yeah. That would have been, let me look at the numbers. 297 minus 1497. That's $1,100 in the ground.
Yeah. So the good thing about getting your the good thing about getting your math right is it gives you room to make mistakes. And since we all know we're going to make mistakes, and I'll never claim to be a genius. We use that term just because it was good for that business. But I'll never say I'm a marketing genius, because there's so much I just don't know. So many places that I still mess up, don't get things right consistently. So instead of trying to be the smartest guy in the room, just be the guy with the best math, because it gives you room to make mistakes and learn and then do better and then figure it out and still survive. Because what kills most businesses is cash flow, right? Yeah. Insufficient cash flow kills businesses. That's what kills all businesses. Twitter, right now, huge company, looks like it has all the potential in the world. It'll probably be dead in 5 years because of cash flow. Mm-hmm. You can only attract investment for so long and not make any money.
Sure.
So even in something that looks like it's too big to fail, if the cash flow isn't there, it's gone. I mean, you look back in the 80s at all the savings and loans that looked like they could never go away. Cash flow dried up and they're gone.
What's the biggest low point you would say in your entrepreneur career where you're like, man, I hit rock bottom at this point, and the only place was up?
Oh, there's a few of those. Honestly, during that time before 2006, because I had one job, no, 2 jobs, since I was 19, where I actually worked for a wage, and those were short-lived because I just couldn't take it. So I've been an entrepreneur, so I've been scrapping, but just laying in bed at night with knowing you have a wife and kids that are depending on you, and thinking, how in the world am I going to do this? I mean, it brings tears to my eyes to think about it right now, because it's so intense, that emotion of how I don't want to disappoint them. I don't want to let them down. And those are intense moments. I would imagine every entrepreneur goes through them. And for me, I think it intensifies when you have people that are counting on you, because it was very different being a single person versus being married and having kids. I mean, because, hey, those little guys are looking at you and they're depending on you to take care of them. And that was probably the lowest part. The second lowest was when Short Sale Genius was on the decline. What
was happening there in that point in 2006 before you hit the magic formula and it worked? Like,
what was happening then?
Yeah, what were you doing in your business? I mean, what were you doing in your life? What was going on?
I had seen some company that was doing websites for real estate agents, and I thought, these are crappy websites. I had to learn coding because of a failed venture where I didn't have enough money to pay the coder to finish. Mm-hmm. That's how I learned how to code. I had to finish the project. And so I'm like, I could do decent or better websites than that. So I started trying to sell those, and I didn't know how to market. So when you don't know how to market, that means you got to pound the pavement and sell. And not that I would consider myself a pretty decent salesperson now, but at the time I think I was still very rusty, because marketing teaches you how to sell better as well, because you're having to sell without having the feedback. And so when you have that,
That's harder.
Oh yeah, it's much harder. But a good marketer can become an excellent salesperson. Like, they can sell almost anything, anywhere. So getting that marketing skill is critical. But that where we were at is that I was at my rope's end. I think I was like renting my brother's house, Trent's house, because he had built a new house, and just things were not looking too good. I'd lived the last 2 years before that because I'd built a house, sold it at the peak of the market, which I knew was the peak. So I got out and then took that money tax free, and we were just kind of living off of that and hard money loans and stuff. And so it was not looking good. But I knew I had to figure something out, and we just moved back to Southern California, went and played basketball with a friend named Travis Tolstrup. He wasn't a friend at the time. He was my adversary, because he's 6'9" and I'm 6'7". So
oh, my gosh. Monsters out in the court.
Well, yeah, he goes out and starts shooting 3-point shots, which any tall person knows you should not do.
That's not even fair.
Yeah, it's not even fair, because I'm like, well, if I come out and cover you, you're going to drive past me. There's one step, and he's like 5 feet past me, because I'm not fast.
That's a big
tall,
step.
I'm not fast.
6'9", so.
Yeah. So I was just like, this is terrible. But he was very aggressive, and afterwards I was like, so what do you do? And he told me he was a marketing coach, marketing consultant. And so that kind of got me. I was like, okay, I know that's my failing, because I just taken 21 grand and given it to some marketing consultants. And I picked the wrong marketing consultants, because all I got back after 6 months was a postcard that gave away a free dinner. I'm like, really? So, that again, I really don't think it's a good idea for people to raise money until they've done something successful, because you're only going to burn bridges and stuff like that. I mean, fortunately, it was friends and family. I think they've mostly forgiven me since then, but it's not a good weight to have on your shoulders, is friends and family money, when you don't know what you're doing. If you're just ambitious, don't raise money. Find a way to bootstrap. Once you learn how to bootstrap, then go raise money if you want to. Probably won't want to once you learn how.
Yeah.
But that was a bad experience for us, because for me, because you have that pressure of you want to let people down and you don't know what you're doing. So as soon as he said marketing, I said, well, I don't want a marketing consultant. I've had one of those, but I'll take a marketing coach, because I know I got to add this to my skill set if I want to become a successful entrepreneur. And so that was the beginning of that. And as soon as I started that education, I had my eyes open. I was looking for something that I could, grab onto and use what I was learning, and then, make mistakes, figure it out, And fortunately, it was like 6 months later that my brother Trent called and said, hey, I got a great product, and I know you've been learning marketing, come help me. And I was grateful for that, because that gave me an opportunity to do it. But my next low point happened after that, because when you have a successful business, now this one, short sales, was a limited window. Mm-hmm. I mean, we could have extended it, but we were done, and the market was done, and it was time to move on. And that was the next low point, because I wondered, was I a one-hit wonder? Had I just been lucky? And, if you have something that works, we had guys during that time that would come into our office, and it was really sad, because they were one-hit wonders. They had done something really good one time, and that was like 10, 20 years ago. And all they did was talk about that. It's like the guy that just talks about high school all the time.
Yeah. Al Bundy.
Dude, it's over, let's get the next win. And I was definitely afraid that I was going to be a one-hit wonder, that it was all luck. It really wasn't any skill. I hadn't learned anything, and that I was going to try and do this, and it was just going to fail again. And unfortunately, found out that there are principles, and you can apply them, you can learn them, and things did work out.
It's awesome. And that's is that when you launched Fix Your Funnel, or what was the next?
Yeah, Fix Your Funnel. So there was a little bit of overlap, because we knew that this was a ticking time bomb, so to speak. We knew that the Short Sale Genius business only was going to go so far. It actually went 2 or 3 years longer than we thought. So we were grateful for that. But we knew it was coming up. So I started toying around with things that we were using, because we use Infusionsoft for that business. That was a first money we spent actually was on getting Infusionsoft, because I'd been, introduced to it, I knew the power of getting the automation. I know people call it Confusionsoft and all that. For me, it never was that way because we didn't try and use all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that we learned is when you need a tool, you use the tool that you need. And you only use the part of it that you need.
So you hammer with the nail, right? Wrench.
If that's all I needed, then that's all I needed. If the hammer did more stuff than that, that's great.
Yeah.
But I didn't need all that stuff, so I wasn't going to try and make it do that.
No.
I just wanted to get ROI on whatever I needed. So, we figured that out, and we did a little piece at a time, and we started seeing things as we evolved, right, that it couldn't do that we needed it to do. So we started, creating those functionalities for ourselves. I think that helped us with, again, because we were always focused on the problem, not on the solution. So the problem was, how do I communicate with somebody my marketing message? So that allowed us to go from, we started like with one-click upsells because like Ryan Dice was one of our first people that started using it. So if you ever been through Ryan Dice's funnels, you probably went through our software. Frank Kern was an early user. Whoever went through Frank Kern stuff you went through our software. So, that was one of the early things that we introduced because we found it was really helpful for events to finance the whole event off of the upsell revenue. So like, that's cool. We'll do that. Then,
so pause real quick because I'm going to gloss over that. So you're able to teach the people that you work with who are throwing events how they can get the whole event paid for even before the event started with a one-click upsell.
Yeah, if you want to go through that strategy real quick, it's super powerful and it's super simple to apply.
I think you would like to learn. I think we got people that want to learn about that. Go right ahead.
Okay, so if you do a live event and you're doing it at a hotel, you know that the cost is all food and beverage, right? The other thing is that the quickest way to people's hearts is through their stomach.
Very true.
Hands down, easy. So if you're doing an event, there's always going to be people who want to be treated a little bit better. Right. So if I'm doing a live event, I want to offer a VIP option.
Mm-hmm.
And the VIP option, I'm going to feed people. I'm going to take care of them extra special. So normally what people might do is they might try and allocate that food budget in a number of different ways. What we figured out very early on is let's allocate it towards our VIPs. Give the VIPs like a special backroom meal with the speakers, the people that are going to be there, so they get to interact with them in a way that the rest of the audience doesn't. And when you do that, you can charge for that experience. And the amount that you charge in that experience is an upsell to the actual ticket price. And that will cover all of your food and beverage. So once you've done that, then before you even show up, the event's paid for. And guess what?
Hang out with your best customers.
They're your best customers. They're going to want to buy whatever you're offering at the event if you're going to offer something. And because they have that interaction with the people who are going to be selling, they trust them. They already broke bread with them. So when they go up on stage and start talking, it depends, if the guy's a loser or the gal's a loser, then
sure,
they'll know that ahead of time. But if they're not, which I'm assuming people aren't going to bring to their events, then there's immediate trust built, and it's deep trust. It's not like the superficial trust of just seeing the presentation. It's from, hey, I had a conversation with this person. There's other people in the room that had conversations with that person. They can talk, outside in the hall, and they can say, oh, hey, what do you think of so-and-so? Oh, they're awesome. I can't wait for their presentation. So you build up some special stuff that isn't available otherwise. And the whole thing's paid for before you even get there. So there's no stress at that point. There's no stress. And once you relieve stress from an event, then it operates way better than ever before. And you build a different feeling in the room, even for the non-VIP people. And you give something for the non-VIP people to aspire to, which is a great blessing to them, because people that aren't VIPs, maybe not be VIPs because they couldn't afford it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that gives them something that they can shoot for. Like, hey, next time I come, I want to be that. I want to be in the VIP group. Well, that helps focus their energy and their efforts on whatever they're trying to accomplish. And that's a huge blessing because they'll get a bunch of other benefits besides being able to be a VIP next time. Mm-hmm. So there's all sorts of effects that come out of it. And that's just from we do the process is then you have everybody go through a basic order form to register. And then you have a little video there that says, hey, I'm so excited you're coming. Thanks for registering. I want you to know about a special VIP experience we're having. And then we also would upsell guests. So, hey, is there anybody in your office that should be here besides yourself? And then we talk about who you might want to bring and why, and then we upsell guest tickets as well.
Yeah,
So increase overall attendance.
For a friend, that's huge right there.
Yeah.
You did all the work to get him all the way to this point, and then you just give him a little, hey, bring a friend kind of program.
Yeah, what's interesting is I did a lot of research because I did a book called Would You Like to Go Big? It's all about upsells. And in the research I did, I asked a ton of successful marketers about that I knew were doing upsells. What percentage of the people say yes to an upsell? And it was interesting because it's always 20%. 20 to 25% is what everybody said. And I never told them, do you get 20%? I never set it up like that.
Sure.
So what that tells you also when I talk about getting the math right is if an upsell is anywhere appropriate in your process, you are losing out if you don't have it in there. Because 20% of the people either want to get there faster, wherever you're taking people, they want to get there faster, or they want to get there in more style. And so whenever I'm creating upsells, that's the way I'm thinking about it is, what helps somebody accelerate the outcome they're going for or getting to the outcome in style, because that's what people want. And you'll find that 20% of your people that are buying will take an upsell of some sort.
And what's the name of that book that you wrote?
Would You Like to Go Big?
Would You Like to Go Big? And they can just go on Amazon and pick that up, or go on your website somewhere?
Yeah, Amazon, it's $5.
There you go.
Money maker, it's just an educator. Because, one of the things I learned early on was that if I hadn't had people teaching me, I would have never gotten to where I am today. And so I try and kind of pay it forward with inexpensive books that people can grab. And of course, there might be a little marketing going on in those.
There might be a little bit of marketing going on in those books. Hopefully there is, because you got to give the opportunity to people to get more access to you, and the proximity is power is what it comes down to.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Ryan, I really appreciate you coming down and sharing it with me today and sharing with the audience here. What's the best way for somebody to get to know you better?
I would push them over to fixyourfunnel.com. We have an education section there, and we have a lot of free education that you can get. And, you can find out what our philosophy is, how we approach things. And if it resonates for you, then, you can reach out to us. We have lots of ways to contact us. Phone numbers on there. You can text us or call us.
What are some of the cool ninja things that you can do in Fix Your Funnel that you've seen people have had the most impact on their business once they started working with you guys?
There's two areas. One is making the calls, like that's what I call my $3 million mistake, because we had 40,000 people register for our events over the course of our training company, and we never called anybody that attended and didn't buy. Now think about that. They took time out of their day to go to a hotel, sit in a room for 3 hours. The least we could have done is just ask them, hey, did you have any questions that came up? And if we would have done that, we would have sold $3 million more. I'm absolutely convinced, because all we had to do is say, hey, did you have any questions? The sales guy was totally crazy. So I was surprised anybody gave him the credit card in the first place. So, why wouldn't we just call him and ask him a question? That's number one, is learning how to call. You know what I mean? Number two is learning the value of getting the phone number early on in the experience. We have something called the marketing rule number 19, which is before you decide how you're going to lead generate, know how you're going to sell. Because when you lead generate, you determine the options you have for selling. So if people just collect a name and an email, you've determined how you can sell. You can only sell via email. You've got to get someone to give up more information to get to that next phase. And some people do that. But what we like to think about from the get-go is, how do I want to sell? Do I want to remarket to people on Facebook? Do I want to be able to call them? Do I want to be able to text them? Do I want to be able to email them? I got to decide exactly how I want to be able to sell, and that's how I design my lead capture. And so where we've seen a lot of people that have a lot of success is thinking about that and then being able to access and utilize the texting channel. So like Frank Kern, for example, for those in your audience that are familiar with him, he's a great sales guy. He's been doing webinars for like a decade or more now, right? Mm-hmm. Very good at doing webinars. Well, he doubled his webinar sales simply by adding a texting question at the end of his presentation. So he'd do a webinar, and then he waits 3 hours, and 3 hours after the webinar, anybody that attended but didn't buy, he sends them out a text message through our platform. It happens automatically, and it says something to the effect of, hey, hope you enjoyed the webinar. In this case, he usually goes with one of his team members. So he says, hey, this is Aurora. Frank asked me to reach out to you and let you know that we have a special experiment he's doing right now. If you're interested, let me know. That's it. Doubled sales just by doing that
But one of the best marketers on the planet.
Yeah, so if he's the best, one of the best marketers, best sales guy, right?
Best sales guy. The one question that we use to double Frank Kern's sales, that's your hook.
Yeah, I mean, so think about that. If Frank can get double, what are you leaving on the table?
What are you leaving on the table? It's
you know
triple,
what I mean?
Quadruple.
Because if I'm not as good as Frank by a long shot, then shouldn't I be able to more than double my sales? Because I'm probably not answering a bunch of questions that Frank knows how to answer preemptively during his presentation. So if I'm leaving opportunity on the table, if I can just ask that one question, if I even got close, the person's going to let me know. So you can do that if you're Frank, because that's kind of Frank's token thing. I'm running a marketing experiment. But you could ask a question about, hey, did you have any questions that came up for you that I didn't answer during the presentation? Because all you're trying to start is a dialogue with somebody. And once you start a dialogue, then that's where all sales occurs, through a dialogue. Sometimes it's a monologue, right, that is a dialogue in their head. But all sales happen through dialogue. And so that's what we do, and we open up that dialogue, and then you have more sales.
And I read about it in the magazine. I was Frank sends out he's got a newsletter, if you guys don't know, and we both don't get any money on this. We just say hi, Frank.
Yeah.
But I've got a newsletter, and I'm sitting there reading the newsletter, opening up, and Ryan, you had just joined a group that I'm a part of with Steve Cypress, and we're sitting there, and I'm like, gosh, it's Ryan Chapman. I'm like, oh, fix your funnel. I'm getting excited. We get a chance to talk and get to know you better. And I open up the newsletter. I'm like, there he is again, right? And I'm sitting there Saturday night. What do I do on a Saturday night? I'm sitting there reading my newsletter.
That's good, man. Gotta feed the brain.
Yeah.
That was interesting. You messaged me about that, and I was like, oh, shoot, I wish Frank would have given me a heads up. I didn't even know.
Yeah, he was talking at the conference about you, too. It was funny. And,
oh, yeah?
Bring it up, and I was like, oh, and then I saw you join the group and stuff, and I was like, wow, this is too cool. And I remember going back to that 2007-8 timeframe when you were doing the Short Sale Genius program, and I remember you and your brother were doing it and listened to your calls, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly I was telling the real estate agents, I'm like, look, we need to put this into action, and getting their brain to wrap around it was just like, huh? And so again, even if you're new to marketing and stuff like that, guys, they have tools to educate you on what to do that are over there to help you, put this stuff into action. And it's just, you utilize one tool, just like Ryan was saying here. You don't have to go in and use the whole toolbox, right? Just get one hammer out and learn how to put one nail in the wall, and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Line upon line. I think it's from the scriptures, but that's the way that we all need to learn, and don't expect to get it all at once. I mean, give yourself some time to learn and grow. I mean, you weren't always the master that you are today, Daryl.
No, not at all.
You had to start somewhere. You probably didn't even know any of the terminology used today on a daily basis.
It's completely different definitions. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I kind of I'll tell my quick story on that. Like I got good because it was a passion of mine. And I find that I found that the passion and burning desire for me was I had dealt with a lot of internal death, and I'd seen a lot of deaths from the Marine Corps. And so the post-traumatic stress thing really pops up. So I'm able to identify those patterns within somebody really quick. And by doing that, help them overcome whatever it is mentally. So they just look at things differently. So,
yeah.
But I had to go through the pain beforehand.
It's funny because, early on I talked down about the mental stuff, even though I didn't think about the fact that I'd been a huge student of it. When I was a teenager, I was reading a book by Steve Covey, who wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Well, he had a book that he wrote like 20 years before that called Spiritual Roots to Human Relations. Okay. And it's a lot of the same concepts before they'd been developed into the 7 Habits. And then, I was reading books like Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within. Mm-hmm. My dad was a big, motivation person. So growing up, we were always listening to Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn and, guys like that. And so a lot of that had already formulated inside my head. I just hadn't always figured out how I was using it. But it's so big to be able to understand how your brain works and, like you're saying, patterns and triggers, and being able to recognize those behaviors and then reformat them so that they move you in the right direction instead of being destructive. And I think it's important for people to understand that can be done. Obviously, you teach that, so that's huge.
Yeah, that's the big thing is you see somebody, and oftentimes I was talking about a study that was done in Harvard, did a study on how like the same endorphins, the same kick off in your mind around like crack cocaine happens around money as well. You know, the
Yeah.
same triggers. So money is really a drug, you know, and people figure out how to get that drug from doing something, whether it's they're trading time for dollars or they're creating a business or whether they're a comedian. You know, I was,
Yeah.
you know, talking with you, look at somebody like a Chris Hart, you know, who possibly going through, you know, as a child had to do something really funny that now he's able now doing that as an adult, but he's getting paid millions of dollars to go do it in movies and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. But I would just invite anybody that's an entrepreneur to think about getting away from the time for money as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, you can build that into your business model. You can have a business that's run around that, but you can also separate yourself from that, even if your business model runs on that. I mean, you go find a guy that runs a plumbing organization. You might think, well, he's trading time for money, but he's not. The guy that owns that business and running it, unless he's out in the truck doing it, which would be a sad situation. But unless he's out in the truck doing it, he's not making. It's not an exchange of time for money for him. He's able to leverage the opportunities he's able to create for his employees to generate leverage for himself. And so every business has that potential in it. You just need to find it and work towards it, you know?
And what Ryan's really focusing on from a higher perspective side of things is you as the business owner, the entrepreneur, the more people that you're able to employ, the more opportunities you create for families that are out there to feed, whether they have 13 kids or 2.
Right.
You know? So you're able to, you know, and if you're sunk down into your business, it's like being in the forest. You can't see, you know, the horizon side of it. So you can't see those things that are coming down the road. You can't see, okay, the market's going to change. We need to actually change what we're doing here because a mile down the road, there happens to be a cliff and we're just going to go right off of it. It's called the 2007, you know, bubble crash, you know, from real estate,
Right.
you know, so.
So that comes back to where you really have to be. I tell people to carve out at least 2 hours a week to work on their business, even if they feel like they can't do it anyway. Because I guarantee you're wasting 2 hours in your week somewhere. You know what I mean? So wherever you're wasting time, whether you're playing a game on your phone or reading some stupid article or on Facebook, whatever, not that any of that stuff is totally bad. But if you aren't working on your business, carve 2 hours out. Start working on your business. What you'll find is you'll get more and more time. But the other thing is get out of your environment too. So go to a live event, you know, talk to somebody that you don't normally talk to that you know is operating at a different level than you are. And those will also help you get above the canopy of the jungle. And so finding those resources and then making sure you're carving time to work on your business, those will be the biggest things you can do if you're trying to grow to a different level.
Mm-hmm. And if there's one thing you would say to an entrepreneur who's possibly going through that low point in their journey, and you just want to give them like hope that, hey guys, I've been there, done that. What would you say to yourself at that point in time, back in 2006, if you are sitting right across from that person in the coffee shop, you know, and the world is just crashing down on them, you know, what advice would you give them at that point and why?
You know, I'm a deeply spiritual person, and I would say trust God and work. You know, we have a hard time as humans seeing what's real. Too frequently we see what we perceive to be real, and do the best that you can, and then trust that God understands what you're going through too. And if you don't have that faith, I hope you get it, because I believe that He does operate in our lives. He's not a passive entity, but He's an active entity in our lives. And if you'll trust Him, He'll put the right people in front of you the way He did for me. We moved somewhere new, and I just felt inspired that day. I got to get out and go play some basketball. He put me in front of Travis Tolstrup, who introduced me to concepts that radically changed my life. I'll always be grateful to Travis, but ultimately I'm grateful to God that He put Travis in my life. And if you do those kind of things, if you trust that He can put the right resources in front of you, if you're willing to put forth the effort, you have to move. But if you'll trust Him and move, you'll get the right things in front of you. Maybe that's this podcast. You know, maybe it's a different episode with Daryl. You know, I don't know, but he'll put those resources in front of you. You keep moving and you keep trusting. And no matter how bad it looks, I guarantee someone's been through worse. And especially if you happen to be in the United States or North America, I guarantee people are going through way worse than you'll ever go through. Even if you lost everything and you owed everything, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is you start over. You know what I mean? That's the worst that can happen. Once you come to grips with the worst that can happen because your business isn't working, is that you got to start over, then you're great. You know what I mean? And you just trust God that he'll help you get through it. He'll help you figure out. He'll help you to see the things you need to see so that you can learn and do better next time. And really, the worst thing that can happen isn't bad. It's not bad, especially not where we live.
So sometimes the worst thing that can happen is the best thing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, because if I hadn't been in that spot, I wouldn't have been looking.
Mm-hmm.
All my low spots caused me to look for things I hadn't been looking for before.
Reach higher.
Yeah. And then hopefully then you take from that you learn how to put your own back up against the wall. For some people, they don't learn until they hit rock bottom. You know, that's what gets them to get up. But you got to learn how to put your own back against the wall so that you get up without having to have the world put you down first. And again, I think that comes back to trusting God and just taking action. And, you know, over time, you'll get where you need to be. It might not be in your time frame, but you'll get where you need to be.
Well, thanks again, Ryan, for coming out and sharing today. And guys, get to fixyourfunnel.com. It's got plenty of information that's over there. I've used Fix Your Funnel. It works. I know it doubled our percentages of just people showing up to the webinar using a system, you know, just using that alone. So can't say I have the same numbers as Frank does.
Hey, you'll get there.
But guys, you can get there.
Now you know. And knowing's half the battle.
Knowing's half the battle. Go, Joe. So again, guys, fixyourfunnel.com. Get there. Make sure that you get an opportunity to connect with Ryan further. And Ryan, I appreciate you. You have so many gold nuggets that you listed in here. There's even too many to list, man, because I'm like jotting down notes over here from the fact of like the biggest thing at the end of the day is, guys, get connected and get connected to the higher power, whatever that is for you. And that higher power is going to lead you where you need to go. Thanks, Brian.
My pleasure.